Welcome to Investories, unlocking the investing mindset and business strategies of high-performing individuals to level up your financial game, crush your goals, and build a life fulfilled. This is the show that asks the questions you wish you knew to ask. This is Investories.
Booyah! Welcome to the Investories podcast. I'm your host, John Hooper, and it's great to be here. I feel like, hey, summer's just around the corner, right? So we can all be excited about that. And I've got a really, really cool interview for you today. Jason James is one of those people that it kind of just pushes out there with positivity and with energy, and is really kind of got that infectious quality that we try and find and we try and tap into. So stick around for that interview. The reason it's compelling is Jason's been on his own journey. So he started in a W-2 like most of us, and grew his career and thought that was everything. And then he's grown that into a real estate portfolio to kind of build that groundswell. And this is something I find really interesting. How do you build an engine that kind of keeps you going and keeps you on track for your goals and your mission? And we get into a ton about that, a ton about his mission, what drives him, what he wants to do. And that journey has taken him forward into running franchise businesses, growing a franchise business, and really taking a step back and sitting in that kind of space of, what do I want to do with my life, and how can I do that? And there's kind of levels of altruism and charity and giving back to a community, and the passion for life and the passion for doing what he does is really around, and really stands up in the interview. Before we dive into it, I need a favor. If you are watching this on YouTube, can you give us a like? Can you also subscribe? And can you maybe share it with one other person you think might like it? And I really want to grow the YouTube channel, partly for my own ego, partly because I think we can add value, and I want to attract bigger guests. And bigger guests are obviously attracted to bigger channels. So I don't ask much. That's what I ask of you. And secondly, same with the podcast. If you can share this with someone, if you can send a link, text someone, do it. It helps us out, and I think it will help them out. And you can always reach out to us if you're a guest or you want to be on the show. Drop us a line, investoriespodcast@gmail.com, or just send us a connection on Instagram. So investoriespod on Instagram, and we'd love to hear from you. And without further ado, here's Jason. Welcome to Investories, Jason James. Hey, Jason.
Hey, thank you for having me, John. Finally good to connect, brother.
No problem. Jason, we met years ago, it seems, right? At a conference. It wasn't that long ago, but hey, it seems like a long time ago. Jason, your story is super interesting because you've kind of gone through that W-2 phase of your life. On the back of that, you've invested and you've kind of built a portfolio of assets. And now you're kind of looking at the next step, which is you're doing your own thing and kind of finding your own rhythm. And so I want to unpack all of that. But first of all, welcome to the show. Great to have you on board and reconnect.
Yeah. It feels like a lifetime ago. I think that was 2022 at BPCon when we met. Yes. And since then, so much has changed. I think I was still in California at that time. Now I'm in Oregon. You mentioned left the W-2, went from big corporate world to small business. So yeah, we got a lot to unpack here, brother. I'm looking forward to this conversation.
Love that. And I think the key thing is, and this is for everyone like me, sat there working a W-2, totally comfortable and being like, wait, you quit your W-2? Isn't that risky? And I think what's interesting is you have that safety net underneath you, right? You have your assets that you've kind of purchased that will let you take those risks, maybe not take the risks. You have business acumen, but let you leap and explore those kind of things. One of the things I've been working on to like figure out what I want to do is like a flywheel. And it's this visual of like W-2 feeds businesses and it feeds assets. And then the businesses feeds assets, and that kind of circles the flywheel. And then you can keep kind of building, taking bigger risks. So I think that's that's the kind of point, right? Was that your thinking getting to that point?
Yeah, honestly, like that hit on the head as far as like the flywheel, right? You have your W-2, you save money, you take that money, you invest it into assets. Those assets appreciate, kick off cash flow, you buy more assets. One of the things that I've learned over the very short time I've been investing, really since 2020, and then just kind of down this journey of development, because I think once you get into investing, one part of it is you start working on becoming a better investor, and there's some things you got to work on in regards to getting to that point. A lot of it's mindset, a lot of fears that you have to face, all the stories you tell yourself. And so I'm going down this journey, and what I'm learning with your flywheel example, that is spot on. But what I've learned is in the middle of that flywheel is you. It's you as a person. And you got to ensure as you're going around that flywheel that you're working on yourself in a bunch of different ways. One, just personal development. Two, the community that you associate yourself with. Three, getting clear on like what you really want, as far as like what a success looks like, for you on this journey, and it may change because like when I first got into real estate, I went on 100 units or whatever that was. But once you start acquiring these units, that shifts because you start to get around people who are a couple steps ahead of you, who are doing things a different way, who kind of educate you on other ways and other vehicles to do you'll still get the same outcome, but it's a little bit more efficient, a little bit more smarter, a lot less headache. And as you kind of go down this road and this journey, and it's twofold, right? Because you're learning as an investor and you're gaining these skill sets, but then as a person and as you're working on your own personal development, they kind of go hand in hand. And so I'm like literally jumped into this journey, and I'm on that flywheel, and I'm just kind of, next spoke. But I think one key part about it is the person that you start off as, and then the person that you develop on the way as an investor, and then like as a, the improvements you make on the personal side as well.
Love that. And it's hard, right? I'm thinking about business ideas. I'm thinking about real estate moves I want to make, and the second guessing and like, how do I validate that? How do I work on that? But the fact that I'm there and thinking about those things is really strong kind of progress. What were the biggest kind of transition points? And I think probably one of them is like taking a view of like, I want to earn X amount a month, or I want this many units, to something a bit more kind of tangible or a bit more kind of resonating with a personal mission. What did that process look like?
Yeah. So I guess I go back to my very first property. I was an investor. I think we misspoke about this. This was in 2018, and it was for tax purposes. I knew nothing about investing. I found this website. I won't say the name, but they were like a turnkey company. Sold it as a turnkey company. I bought this property. Everything that could potentially go wrong went wrong. Very naive, right? You don't know what you don't know. Had a tenant for 10 years. Didn't vet the property manager. I didn't, vet lenders. Like everything that you can possibly go wrong went wrong. And this property was like 4,000 miles away. This was in Michigan. And it was the best thing that ever happened to me. And so once everything went wrong, it forced me to learn how to become an investor, which I found Bigger Pockets. And that's where all the knowledge and the I got started in regards to like getting this burning desire to want to invest once I solved this problem. And then from that standpoint, it was like, okay, how can I replace my W-2, or how do I make X amount of money? Then it was doors, right? It's like, hey, you know what? It'd be cool to get to X amount of doors. And I think, year 2 was I want to get to 20 doors. And to go from at that point 1 to 20, that's 10x in it, right? And so I'm a very ambitious guy, right? So I had one, and then I ended up doing a house hack, so I actually had two. I had two properties.
There you go.
Yeah,
Your math sound.
Okay. All right. I just want to make sure. Yeah. So, with that, like talking about this development journey and who you have to become, like to reach these different feats and to start to get momentum, you have to change the way you do things. And sometimes there are big changes. So in 2020, the perfect time to leave a job, I left the job I was at for 15 years. So, and one of the reasons why was I was really getting serious about real estate and wanting to start to go down this journey. And while this job gave me a lot in my life, traveled, done a lot of things, developed me to the man I am. I was there for a significant part of my life. I was at a point where something had to give if I really wanted to go down the journey of real estate. So right around June, July of 2020, I left this job. That was like one of the biggest moves I ever had. It was a W-2. And with that, I gained a lot more time back. And with that time I gained back, I didn't go play video games and go to bars and watch more football. I started investing into myself. So I started to go to meetups more. I hired a high performance coach, a mindset coach. And I really ramped it up on investing into myself, and then gave myself a very aggressive target of acquiring 20 doors within a year time period. And so with that, in 2021, I actually hit that goal. We were under contract for a 19 unit, and I want to say it was like December, right around November, we went under contract. It actually closed the next year, but I counted it because it went under contract in the year that my goal was. And so at that point in time, I was still chasing doors. Like that was the goal. And then, my mindset coach, or performance coach, he's like, why are you so wrapped around doors? What's the doors, And I'm like, well, I'm a product of bigger pockets. Like that's the whole,
that's the metric, right?
That's the metric. It's like doors, doors, doors. And he's like, well, if you found one property that gave you the number that you wanted, would you not do it? And I'm like, of course I would. And he was like, okay, then start looking at it different, because we are so focused on just this one avenue to get to your goal. You miss out on a lot of things around you. And that was like one of the biggest boom, eye-opening moments, right? And so that started to get me to thinking different. And now I look at it totally different, because, from there, like I said, I was going down this road of development. I was like, I have to get in rooms with people who are 2, 3, 4, 5 steps ahead of me, right? Mm-hmm. So I can be the smallest person in the room. I'm just a sponge. And then so in 2021, last day of 2021, 2022, I ended up joining GoBundance. And so very one of the best moves I made in my life, honestly, to join GoBundance. Just an amazing community. I don't know how familiar you are with
yeah,
GoBundance.
I think for those not au fait with GoBundance, can you give us the rundown of what GoBundance is?
It's a tribe of healthy, wealthy individuals who want to become the best version of themselves. That's in a nutshell. You have guys who, it's built around the 6 pillars: vulnerability, vertical income, genuine contribution, and a couple other ones. But it's just a network or tribe of men who want to see people succeed, and all on the same journey of becoming the best versions of themselves. And so when I joined, I knew about the pillars, and I wanted to be the smallest person in the room, in all these pillars, because you got health, you got contribution, you got, there's the financial piece to it. But it was really interesting to see like the vulnerability side, which these are all like A players, just like top performers, and to see that the culture that GoBundance has cultivated on the vulnerability piece was just eye opening. And right then and there, I knew like I was in the right place, because everybody wants to talk about the wins. It's the social world we live in. Everybody wants to put the deal that they got, or how much money they made off the deal, and this, that, and the other, perfect marriage. their feet on the beach. Like that's what we see in the social world. But as well as I know, that's not the entire.
It's not reality. Yeah.
That's not reality. I always tell people, John, like, I've never had an investment work out like the spreadsheet, whether it performed better or worse, right? Like it's never worked out like, hey, this
exactly
should
the
give me
I love that.
X% of cash flow. It just never worked that way, whether it was way better than I expected or way worse. And joining GoBundance, like it really laid a foundation for me, and added a lot of value just from being able to hear the stories of people who are 2, 3, 4, 10 steps ahead of me, how they think, the things that they've been through. And it's been great. So that's been another part of this journey as far as, becoming a better version of myself in overall investing in my overall skill set of becoming a better investor.
And there's a value to that, right? There's value in the relationships you're going to build in a community like that, which is really powerful. Just getting around, like you said about meetups, just going to meetups and meeting people that, as you said, a few steps ahead, or 5 steps, or 10, or 100 steps ahead, and you're like, wow, these guys are crushing it. I think the interesting thing you said about the number of doors, and I was the same. I was conditioned of like, I want this many doors with this much cash flow, right? And it was like almost like formulaic. And I work in sales, I work in marketing, I work in business, kind of sales and engagement and all that good stuff. And a lot of the stuff we do is business cases. It's like, actually, a property should be a business case. Like, here's the business case for this business, and you buy it and sell it like a business. It's like, what the hell am I hung up on? Number of doors. Like, if you can get 100 doors and they cash flow $10, but you don't have to pay anything for it, everyone would take it.
Yeah.
It's like what? But no, I need 20, and I need $100. Otherwise, it's kind of crazy. One of the things we discussed kind of ahead of this conversation was around kind of meditation, breath work, priming your days, kind of stuff. And I was skeptical of that for years, and then I kind of led it into my life and like started to meditate and all that good stuff. Do you like have a set morning routine that you have to follow, or is there kind of some rudimentary rules you follow, or what does that look like?
Yeah. So I've been practicing Miracle Morning. I don't know how familiar you are with that, by Hal Elrod, the Daily Savers. So for about 6 years now, and that's how the meditation started. So very small increments at first until I start to see the value of it. And now I meditate anywhere from 20 to 30 minutes a day. I normally start off with 10, depending if I'm at home or traveling, 10 to 30 minute meditation to start the day. And then like around midday, I'll just go sit and breathe for, 5-10 minutes. And that's kind of like my refresh to clear my mind. And it's really powerful. It's really powerful. It keeps me definitely in what I would call my peak state at my best. And it gives me like midday, that buffer. Like if you're having a day and you're just, making a lot of decisions or things are just coming at you, it's a good like reset from a clarity standpoint. And so I am a big fan of meditation and also breath work. So I heard about breath work, it's on all the podcasts, and because a lot of people are starting to use it now, and it's one of the things that keep popping up. One in particular is called Holotropic breathwork. And so I heard about this from several people within GoBundance, a good friend of mine out of Chicago, like one of my best friends actually. And he was at a session in Atlanta, and he said it was like an experience he had never had before ever. And then I heard that from another guy. And then so I was like, I gotta like really see what this is about. And then fast forward to like, it was October of last year. We were at a regional event, a mastermind for GoBundance. And they had this guy, Ryan Kennedy, and he was leading a session on it. And so you hear the stories, but you don't know what to expect, and so We have, it's about an hour session, and it's pretty structured. You know, there's music in the background. He's talking you through it. He's walking through everything that you're going to experience in the overall framework and whatnot. And it was one of the most powerful exercises I've ever done in my life, like ever. And so I'm not a big crier, John, not to be like egotistical. It's just not me. My wife calls me the Tin Man, and I just never been the guy that sheds tears, you know. I think I cried for like 30 minutes on this thing.
Wow.
It was an experience like no other. And so this session, I want to say it was like 30 to 35 men in a session. And then, you know, the experience is you know, it's a journey. So he takes you on this journey of like, hey, you know, what is something that like you're holding on to or regret? So he goes super, super deep. And then he kind of brings you to, okay, what are some fears that you're holding on to? What are you super grateful for? And then like, what's holding you back? So it's like this journey of emotions. Um, and it's all breathing. Like, so you're following his directions as far as breathing. You do like these pretty intense, like releases, and it feels like, it literally feels like lightning is hitting your body. Like you're shaking. But I went deep. So just to give you some clarity, like on the part of like the regret or what am I holding on to, like clear as day, John, I went back to when I was 8 years old, or maybe even about 7 years old as a kid in elementary. And it was a specific thing that happened. I lost my mom at a very young age. And I remember at this time, the teacher was going around, and it was like Parents' Day. It was like, you know, Parents' Day at school. And I felt super small because my dad wasn't in my life. I lost my mom. And I'm like, I'm the only
Wow.
kid here without parents, right? And never in a million years would I haven't thought about that, had that idea. But this
Yeah.
session somehow tapped into something that I was holding on to, and then I was able to release it. Um,
Wow.
the
You
other
just
big,
hadn't processed it then,
yeah,
effectively, because
yeah,
you were 8.
yeah, I was 8 years old, right?
Wow.
And so the thing about that, out of 30 to 35 men, I would say 80% of them were crying. I'm talking like how me and you are looking at on the screen, face to face with men bawling, A-type personalities. That's
Mhm.
how powerful this was. So that was one part of it, like a release of this, some things that baggage that we don't know that's there, that we hold on to. The other part, which is one of the reasons why I tell people, I made the leap from the W-2, was the fear part is like, what's holding you back? And I got a lot of clarity from that. And one of the things that I found out was the only thing that's holding me back is me. And what I mean by that is by me not betting on myself. And so if you, John, you know, we talked a few different times. I know how you're wired. Today, if you lost everything you had and just financially, what would you do tomorrow?
Yeah, that was my question for you. But you know what? I'd regroup. So I'm not one to dwell on like, oh, that was a loss or we took it out. I'd regroup and start my strategy again and be present in my skills and experience. I haven't transitioned out of my W-2. I'm confident I could get back into the workforce, into a high paying role, and I'd rebuild. But what I wouldn't do is dwell on it and stop and go, that's it, that's everything done. It would be regrouping and powering forward. Um, what are the lessons I learned? What can I take away from that experience? All that good stuff. Um, yeah.
That's it, 100%. And so that's what it cleared up for me is so many times we don't give ourselves credit for what we have done or what we can do. But coming out of that session, I had a lot of confidence, and it solidified the confidence in my ability to, one, bet on myself, because at the end of the day, like you know, made a lot of companies, a lot of money, you know, and I know the type of effort that I give and action that I take and how I'm wired to ensure that I'm successful in whatever I do. The only thing and it's interesting. It's a lot of people, like, when you go think about it and doing it for yourself, that's when all the fears and all the what ifs comes up. But what came out of it is, like, regardless, if I, exactly what you said, if I lost it all today, I'm not going to sit here and go, you know, woe is me, the world is unfair. I'm right back at it tomorrow. Like, okay, what can I learn? How can I pivot my strategy? Like, of course, in the moment, it's gonna suck. That's just, it's gonna suck.
Pain
But
is pain. Yeah,
pain is pain.
It's gonna hurt.
It's gonna hurt. But I'm gonna come back 2 times stronger. And so that's one of the biggest things that came out of it for me, of that session. And then I guess the other part, I've had the privilege of interviewing a lot. So within GoBundance, I lead this micro tribe. It's a group, and they're all about, some are investing, some are doctors, whatever. But I lead the one, or co-lead the one, is called Leaving My W-2. So it's all these, high net worth W-2 people who are on the verge of leaving their jobs. We bring a lot of people on, John, that have made the jump. And people who were CEOs making $1 million a year, to people who were, a few $100,000, all walks of life. The one thing that they all have in common, the one thing that they all have in common, is that they all betted on themselves, right? Like, some guys had it all figured out. They had almost as close to a spreadsheet as runway and all that figured out. Some of them had none of it figured out. Like, one guy in particular, I was like, what was your plan? He's like, I didn't have one. I just knew I wasn't going to lose. And this is the life I wanted to create for myself. Now he has this massive business. Another guy's like, hey, I did my daily savers. I had my vision board. I looked at it every day, and like everything in that vision board, I have achieved. And so a bunch of different ways to get to that point. But the one thing they all had, and they all talked about, is that they bet on themselves. And they bet on themselves. The entrepreneur's journey, as you know, is never easy, but it's very fulfilling. And when you bet on yourself, and you'll eventually figure it out. And that's what I always tell people. Like, we wouldn't be here talking if everything that John Hooper and Jason James faced, we didn't overcome. And
why do you think people don't bet on themselves?
It's the story we tell ourselves, right? Like, we have a negativity bias as human beings, right? And it's all for self-preservation, for it's wired into us. What I don't think people do is kind of how we opened up, is like meditation, or getting silent, or asking the bigger questions. People, I don't think people take enough time to like sit there and just like process things and get quiet. And then there's a lot of other like external influences that can happen too. Like, I know some pretty, high performing people who have spouses or whatever, and there's a lot of influence coming from in-laws and parents, right? And so what I've learned too on that, because like I've had that in my life. People tell me like, what are you doing in real estate? Aren't you afraid of this? Or why are you leaving your job? And one of and I may chop this up, but one of the best quotes is like, never listen to somebody who's never been where you're going. Right. So like,
yeah, it's I wouldn't do that. ... It's like, well, cool. What's your qualifications?
100. But if you ask people why they don't do something, or why they haven't, a lot of it's because, oh, my uncle, or oh, my mom, or oh, okay, was your mom an investor? Did your mom, or did your uncle start his own business? Have you ever? No. Then like, why are you letting them determine your future? And so I think that's the other part. It's like, there's a lot of external influences that people let guide their decisions. But I think if people just took the time to actually like sit and then get quiet and ask the bigger questions.
You nailed it with the word. For me, this is how it worked. It was processing, and it took like muscle memory to like be able to do it. But I'd sit down, I use Brain FM. I'd stick in Brain FM for 15 minutes, and I would just process, and I wouldn't give myself a hard time by kind of drifting off my thoughts and thinking about other stuff, or like just, I don't know, thinking about something completely unrelated. It takes it takes time to figure out how to do that processing. But once you get there, and that's kind of where I've got to now with my meditation in the morning, I do it 90% of the time. I know the feeling when it's gone well, and it's hard to say good or bad, right? There's no real good or bad, but you get a feeling afterwards. It's a bit like I took a walk this morning on the beach, and I took a couple of W2 calls as I walked around the beach, and I finished my walk, went and got a coffee, and I felt renewed. To be honest, I felt like energized. Got some sunlight, got some caffeine, got a nice stroll in, walked about 5 miles. So that was kind of nice. And the duality of that is like, yeah, I got up at 5 a.m. this morning so I could go and do that. So I got up, did my emails, did what I needed to do first thing in the morning, then went for my walk. That's the kind of, okay, you want that, you want A, but you also need to do B to get to A kind of thing. If that, it sounds a bit washy, but that's kind of, it's interesting when you start to have these kind of wants and needs. That's what it takes.
No, I think you hit a point too. It takes action. Even when I got started, I know this couple, like this was like 4 years ago, and I met them because me and my wife were looking for a duplex when they were looking for a duplex. And we kind of started this journey together. And then we would check in and see how everything's going. And, it was one excuse after another, waiting for this is back when rates were 2.5%. and they were waiting for the prices to come down, and I'm like, what? And till this day, they haven't done anything. And as you know, the market is a total 360 of what it was,
Mm-hmm.
in 2020, 2021. But like, that's one thing too, is like actually just taking one step towards your goal, right? And depending if you are new to investing, that can be as simple as just like calling a realtor just to have that conversation. Or, I think it's a lot easier than what people think to get that momentum started, but you do have to start to get the little wins. Because if you don't even start that, then you're never going to get started. I think action is a big one, and I try to start my day off doing whatever's the hardest thing that I tell myself of the day is. Mm-hmm. And you talk about building a muscle memory. That is a muscle too. And once you start flexing that muscle, you can do amazing things. And whether it's having the tough conversation that in your head is going to be this big, audacious, hard talk, and then you have it, and that was easy, and that's the win. And you just the next thing, and so there's a lot of, I don't want to call them hacks, but things you can do to start to get that momentum flowing, to get momentum, and hopefully break through the fears or the stories that we tell ourselves.
So I think one of the interesting things, and like breaking through the W2 and getting out of the W2 kind of game, I feel like a lot of people are there's like almost a toxic relationship between people and employers, in the fact that people are unfulfilled and employers aren't really bothered. And it's kind of this weird symbiosis that like, actually, we don't need our people too happy, and we don't need them too kind of motivated or too aspirational. And on the same side, it's like, well, work's easy and I can kind of clock in and out and blah, blah, blah. And I think I got a unique perspective because I moved to the States, 8 or 9 years ago, with like zero, no credit, a little bit of cash, not actually that much, no place, investments in the UK, but not a great deal. And I had to kind of do that reset, and it got me, it was hard to reset, but it was also like gave me this whole scope to be a different person or a different version of myself. And what I noticed is there's so many people, like, you speak to someone and they're like, oh yeah, I've been in that job for 12 years. And you're like, that's it? You don't want, you don't need to manage people, but do you not want more? Do you not want more creativity or flexibility or whatever that looks like? And I feel like that's the difference when you start talking to people, GoBundance or Bigger Pockets conference or whatever. People are like, it's great, I love my W2, but this is the legacy I want, or this is because I want to help people, or this is really cool, I want to build communities. It's finding that, but ... Here's kind of what's next. And I think moving on from your W2, it's really interesting that you've gone through that process. And So going into a franchise model, was that like a good first step into kind of self-driven entrepreneurship? Did you want it as a safety net rather than, the proven model? Or I'd love you to talk to us about that.
Yeah, so this one is all of a product of being around the right community of people at the right time. So, as I was, started co-leading, and I used to attend it before me and Rob started co-leading this micro tribe, of leaving my W-2. If you'd asked me 4 years ago, it would have been 100% real estate, real estate, real estate. And why I'm still like actively investing in real estate, what you start to find out, a lot of the successful people who have massive real estate portfolios, the driver of what built those portfolios are businesses. And then you meet just a very wide range of people who are uber successful. And then like I always thought, and then I guess money is the easy measurement stick, right? You see somebody who has like a big business or who you view as uber successful, and you think they just have it all figured out. Like, oh, they just got to be buttoned up from like A to Z. And then when you find out, like, they're just human beings. They all have the same challenges, opportunities that we have, the fears, the self-limiting beliefs they have just at a different level. So like none of that stuff ever goes away. And I start to kind of learn that, right? From being in these different rooms and being in different accountability groups. And it was really good for me because it brought a lot of perspective because, to be 100% vulnerable is like when I start kind of going down this journey, like I would have, I don't know if you struggle with this. Something I worked on is really subsided now, but it's like, what value can I add? That will always be the thing I was struggling with. Like, especially when I first started going to like meetups, my very first meetups when I was chasing David Green all around the Bay Area, I knew nothing, right? I'm like, what value can I add? And then I just got past that, started meeting people. And the cool thing about real estate meetups is like, it's always good energy. People want you to see you succeed. But then as you get in the bigger rooms, it's like, that still will pop up. It's like, hey dude, I'm only done a couple deals. Like, what value can I add? And when I joined GoBundance, that's why I joined it, because I want to get past that. And then once I got in these rooms with these bigger peoples who have had all this different success in different parts of life, whether it be health, wealth, family, spiritual, it really showed me like the value that I could add as far as like the things that I've learned from my W-2 and leadership roles. And then what came out of that from one of my we call it our goal pod is like, dude, like, why don't you have your own business? They literally called me out like with your skill set and what, like you should, you should have some type of like sales business. And it was like this aha that I, like, you are right. That's what I've done for like the last 15, 20 years is build sales teams, training, coaching, development, but it was for a corporate environment. And so that kind of got me, the brains kind of thinking about acquiring a small business. And so my commitment to them was to acquire a small business by June 30th, 2025. That was my commitment to them. And fast forward to now, within GoBundance, I, met another guy who has a few other businesses, and then he walked me through kind of what he was working on in out here in Oregon with that one painting franchise. It's a residential commercial painting franchise. Mm-hmm. So we met, a really good guy, aligned. He's same thing, like owns businesses, owns real estate. We have a lot of similarities. He's going down this path that can see this, to see what's possible for him. Same thing, just like you. Like and it's one of those things where there's a lot of similarities and commonalities. And then I'm at a point where I like being around good people who bring me energy. Like this conversation brings me a lot of energy. That's why I'm here. That's good. Well, like I just like, I don't know about you. It's kind of like what you said, like how when you left and came to the States, you kind of created this new, you can become whoever you want to be, and you can put yourself around people you want to be around. And so when I left California to Oregon, I was very intentional about that. I only put myself around people who give me energy or that just, it's just good. I like being around good human beings. And so me and him clicked like that. We kind of went back and forth to see how we can make this work. And, we did. So in February 2020, I left Red Bull, and then we launched last month, that one painter. So building it from the ground up. And then you asked earlier about franchise versus standard business. I would have been open for either, actually, because like I was looking to take over an existing business that has some opportunities, whether it be sales, whether it be efficiencies, whether it be technology, and then take it, add that layer on top of it, and accelerate it. So I honestly, up until this point, I hadn't even really looked at the franchise model. This just made sense based on where I was at, and then I really clicked with my partner on it, and we made it make sense. So
yeah, I mean, franchise, nothing wrong with a franchise. Like there's so many terrible ones out there, but then there's also so many terrible small businesses, right, that you can probably go and buy. So yeah, I spoke a while back to a franchise consultant, and it was fascinating because he's like, yeah, there's a ton of crappy franchises out there, but there's a ton of great ones as well. What's interesting is the space you're in, which is, and the reason it's interesting is I was listening to a podcast this morning with Anthony Pompeo, and he was talking about the businesses he owns and the businesses that very successful people owns and billionaires, like, you know, the founder of Kinko's, who's a billionaire and does, you know, built his billions on copying. So it doesn't need to be this tech unicorn. In fact, it's easier to compete with mom and pops in the painting world than Sam Altman in ChatGPT, right? It's like, who do you want to compete with, Zuckerberg or some local painting firm that, you know, don't have their things together, they don't manage their staff properly, they're tired, they're jaded, that kind of stuff. So it's interesting. I like that. I think we're, you know, and the other point was what can't be replaced by AI. Now eventually there probably will be painting robots.
Yeah.
But right now you need that finesse. You need the eye for detail and all that kind of stuff. So that's super interesting. And I think, yeah, more credit to you in taking that leap. I'm certainly going to go and look at GoBundance as a powerful driver. I think the taking action thing is the takeaway, right? So if you were starting today, I know we've kind of had that conversation already. Let's say you get home from your W2 at 5 p.m.
Okay.
You fire up a microwave meal and you sit and play Xbox for the next 2 hours. What are you telling yourself? What's Jason in this universe telling multiverse Jason?
So if I'm sitting playing Xbox for 2 hours, oh man. The way I'm wired now and how I spend my time, wow, that's a really good, interesting question, because I used to be a gamer when I was.
You don't have time now, right?
No, yeah. If you're asking me, like, what would I be telling myself? So if I'm just sitting there, are you talking about just like down?
How would you flick that switch to make a change? There you go.
Oh, got it. So if I'm that guy, I'm gaming, I'm not using my time wisely, like, how would I flip the switch? I think that version of me, it's going to take some effort on that version of me. And you just got to ask the big question. Am I really happy? Am I on the path to achieve my goals? And then, like, how does what I'm doing now, how I'm investing my time, how does it serve me? You just got to ask bigger questions. And I think that's the quickest way to flip the switch. And so if I ask those questions, am I on the path to hit my goals? And the answer is yes, then I'm okay. I'm going to keep playing Xbox and eating microwave pizzas, right?
Gonna be a pro gamer. Yeah.
Right? If that's no, okay, not red flag, but okay, that's point number one, okay, is what I'm doing serve me towards hitting my goals? If that answers yes, then I may be a pro gamer. If not, then that's the aha number two. And then it starts there, because you can go to all the conferences, John. You can go get even all the coaching. You can have all this support, listen to all the podcasts, read all the books. But if you as a person, as an individual, don't ask yourself the right questions and get clear on what you want, you're never going to take the right action. That's just me. I know active people who go to a ton of conferences and they still have never done anything. I know people who have read a ton of books and they've never take action from that book, And so at the end of the day, as I look at it, to get for more momentum or movement of any kind, there has to be some type of action. And the action can be as small as just asking yourself the right questions to get you thinking, right? And that's the nudge you need to, okay, let me put my goals on paper, or what I want my life to look like in the next 5-10 years. That's action number two. Okay, what are the steps that I can do to begin to get me towards that, that path? That's action number three. But at the end of the day, there has to be some type of action, because if I'm that guy who just had my microwave pizza and I'm 2 hours on the Xbox, and the only actions I'm taking is me, playing Xbox, that's going to be me next year. That's going to be me in 2 years, in 3 years. And so no matter how you look at it, there has to be some intentional effort taken by that person. And then I guess the other, I guess, way to fast track that is to get around people that are where you want to go, or, 2 steps ahead of you. Because just by proximity, if that's truly what you want, you will start changing your behaviors. Right. But then again, that's still an action step. So at the end of the day, it comes down to some action of some sort. But the two ways, asking the right questions, will be one. The other way is just getting around the right group of people.
Love that.
Yeah.
Jason, that's so cool, and thank you so much for your time today. How can people get in touch with you?
You can get in touch with me on Facebook, Jason James on Facebook, or you can connect with me at That One Painter Oregon City on Facebook, or online at That One Painter Oregon City. So
cool. We'll put links in the show notes so people can just scroll down, click, and go say hi. Jason, thank you so much for your time. I feel super motivated, so that's good. You've done your job, right? I mean, I try.
No, this has been great, man. I'm glad we finally got to connect. Love chatting with you as always. But yeah, I'm had a really good conversation, man. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Jason, and we'll be back next week.
Thank you for listening to Invest Stories. If you like what you've heard, please consider sharing and writing a 5-star review.